beautiful white building is from 2008, and that is our opera house. And as you can see, or maybe not see yet, but it's almost mandatory to walk on the opera roof. I know I told some of you yesterday, so I don't know if you already did that.
Yes.
But I can't say today that it's a beautiful view from the roof, because I don't know what you can see today because it's quite foggy. Which is going to be interesting, because when we go up to the ski jump, I don't know what we will see. But this is the weather for you. That's how it is. Every day is a new type of weather, and that's probably all we talk about in Norway. It's a good starting conversation. You want to get to meet people. And the building to your right, that is the new library from 2020. And it has a really cool architecture, and especially inside also, when you walk inside, if you happen to have the time today, walk inside, go towards the little shop, the souvenir shop, and then look up. It's really cool. And the cranes that you see to your right across the water, that is where the Port of Oslo is. And the Port of Oslo, they have a slogan or a saying that the seaway is the environmental way, meaning they want to promote more transportation by transport goods by water than by land. And to the left we have the central station. That the cream-colored building you have to the left, that's the older part, and then where it says Oslo Central Station, that's the newer part. Have a lot of cafes and restaurants also inside the central station. And this area is sort of new, although not that new, but we call it the barcode. And the reason we call it the barcode is coming up on our left. 12 individual buildings, quite narrow, and you have KLP and Deloitte. Gud av meg, ta her du. Ja, det var det jeg skulle se det.
And yagambye bagita library.
And now we're turning left, and we also, you're going to right. I thought you were turning left. Let's do left, and then left again. And when we take to the left, then look to the right, because that's a really cool view of the opera building. No, I'm sorry, not the opera building, but the Munch Museum. The opera building you have to the right now. And inside the opera building, approximately 600 people working. Everything from the costume department to the opera choir, the ballet young, the ballet school. And as we turn to the left, then you can look to the right. Let's see. Here, if you look to the right, that's quite a cool view of the Munch Museum.
Munch Museum.
And these buildings that you now see to the right, this is the barcode. And as I said, they all have an individual architect. And especially when you look from the other side, it really resembles a barcode. And if you, I don't know if you can see down to the right, this is a river that we call the Akersh River. And if you actually walk up the Akersh River or down, depending on what you want, you will walk 9.5 kilometers. And alongside this river, this is where we had in the mid-1800s, where we had our Industrial Revolution. Of course, these red brick buildings, huge red brick buildings, are now something else. You know, there are art schools and architectural small companies, and a lot of wine bars and restaurants and coffee shops. So if you can turn your head, if you can manage, you can see why we, or maybe why we call it the barcode. And the two tall buildings, I don't know if I should tell you, tall buildings that we have to the left, But those are the tallest buildings you will find here.
tebalina bano
I
bizimbe
wonder if
biwanvu.
Norwegians are aware of how lucky we are that we actually have so much space to move around.
Yeah.
And also when it comes to the actual borders of Oslo, at one point you are not allowed to build. It's the forest, but you can move around in the forest and you can use the forest, and some part of the forest is also privately owned, but you're not allowed to build anything. So the cool thing is that if you want to find the geographical center in Oslo, you actually find it in the middle of the forest. And we're turning right, and in front of us in a little while you will see our cathedral, the spire that you see in front of you. That's our cathedral from 1697. And at one point the city of Oslo, in medieval time, it was situated a couple of kilometers behind the Munch Museum and the Opera House, and then around the mid-1600 it was moved, and then it was moved to be very close to the fortress Akershus, and the fortress is actually where we met, where the buses were today. But just to tell you a little bit about something that happened in 2011, when I mentioned the cathedral, I don't know if you remember, but in 2011 Norway had a terror attack. One man that built a car bomb that blew up outside the government administration, which is a little bit to the right behind some of these buildings, where 6 or 7 people were killed. And then he takes another car, he takes a boat, and he goes out to the island where the Labour Party have had their summer camp for youth for decades. He dresses up as a policeman, calls for everyone to come out, and he shoots them at close range. 77 people in total, and the youngest one was 14. And right after that happened, the whole of Norway, and I mean the whole of Norway, came down. Everyone came down to the city, the capital. Everyone was carrying one red rose and put the rose in front of the cathedral. And it was like an ocean of red roses. You couldn't even walk anywhere. And the reason why I'm telling you this, because as we're driving up towards the cathedral, I will point out to you to the left, because after a little while that happened, a couple that were artists asked blacksmiths all over the world to make one iron rose as a memorial. And that is like a small circle flower bed where these iron roses are planted in front of the entrance of the cathedral. So I will point that out to you. Going to turn right, but then I will point out to you to the left. On the right hand side of the main entrance of the cathedral, you have sort of a circle flower bed, yep, where all the iron roses are planted as a memorial of 2011. And actually, if we had continued straight forward, we would have just the main street, Karl Johan, where you see the blue truck in front of us, that is where our main street is, but we're going up to the right. So look to the left now, see the circle flower bed, that is where the iron roses are. And to the right here, you have one of the older department stores in Oslo. And actually the street that we're driving up is called, in English, is called the border. In Norwegian, grensen. And and the reason why it's called the border or grensen is because at the time this was where when we had moved the city in 1624 or started the moving, this was then outside the city limit. But very quickly, of course, Oslo grew, and this was included also in the city. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of the older buildings left. Oslo has gone through a lot of fires, and the wooden buildings were not necessarily rebuilt, and instead we built bigger buildings that are also torn down, and you have now more of the companies or offices, what you have here. And now we're crossing the main street, Karl Johan. So up to the right here, this is the main street, Karl Johan, which will carry you all the way up to the palace. And here to the right, you also have one of the older, actually the oldest department store in Oslo, called Sten and Strøm. The department store has 4 entrances, so depending on where you come from. And actually this area here is called Kvadraturen, because when the king at the time in the mid 1600s, when he moved the city, he also had an idea about, he was really into the Renaissance ideals where everything was really clean and straight. So all the streets were supposed to be like in a grid, straight that way and straight across. And there are 2 topics that you really can't avoid when you talk about Norwegian history. One is Norway in union first with Denmark, over 400 years, and then with Sweden, almost 100 years. And then it's the Second World War from 9th of April 1940 to 8th of May 1945. And along the way, there will be absolutely a couple of things that will remind us, and especially when you're walking, you will pass so many memorials, sculptures, and whatnot that will remind us about especially the Second World War, but also about the different unions that we had. And there are not that many people out because people are either in school or working. So it looks very empty.
City.
But just wait until 3-4 o'clock, it will be a lot of people. And we are now turning right, and as we're turning right, look to the left, the orange building, because that's the Freemason building, which is really beautiful. Never been inside. I wasn't invited. So that's the orange building, and the building right in front of us, that's the Parliament building. And we'll see if we can get a little glimpse. So we'll see if we can stop 2 seconds. This building is from 1866, and there's of course always a competition when it comes to who will be the architects, and we chose 2 very well-known architects that had been, drawing and building quite a few times in Oslo. But then suddenly this little Swede comes out of nowhere, Victor Langlais. He shows us his sketches for the new Parliament building, and we say goodbye to the 2 well-known architects, and we go with Victor Langlais. And the reason for that is that you will see now as we're turning right, this is the design that we had never, the architecture that we never had seen before. The half circle, which we thought was amazing. And on the first floor, that's where the Parliament is actually seated. And the door, the wooden door that is now open, actually, this is where the people could see everyone going in and out. So people felt that they were part of decision making. Also the rectangular windows that would let in so much light, and also the yellow brick. We've never seen a building in yellow brick before. And the building right in front of us to the right, this is Grand Hotel. It's an absolutely beautiful historical hotel. And the 10th of December is where we have the Nobel Peace Prize in Oslo, in Norway. I don't know if you know much about the Nobel Peace Prize.
Of course. Bobby Wine
just to tell you a little story. So Alfred Nobel He was together with his brother and father. He was born in 1833, and together with his brother and father, they were scientists. And from the liquid nitroglycerin, he invented the dynamite. And just before he died, in his will, he named 5 prizes. So just before I continue my story, if you look to the left, you can see the palace. And so this is the main street, Karl Johan. So we're going to make another turn so you also can see a little bit closer, but that's the palace to the left. Yeah. But again, back to Alfred Nobel. So just before he died, in his will, he named 5 prizes: physics, chemistry, literature, medicine, and peace. Now, the first 4 prizes are in a beautiful ceremony in Stockholm, but the Peace Prize is in a fantastic, beautiful ceremony in Oslo, in Norway. And of course, the Norwegians, we know that the Nobel Peace Prize is sort of, up there. And why do we have the Peace Prize in Norway? Well, I wish I could tell you, but I don't know. Because Alfred Nobel never told us why he wanted the Peace Prize to be in Norway. But we can always speculate. What I can tell you is that we were in union with Sweden at the time, and that he was a little bit opposed to the political views that Sweden had at the time, so that could be one reason. And why a Peace Prize? Well, we don't know that either. But what we do know, and we can speculate again, is that he was very much in love with a woman called von Sutton, and he wanted to marry her, and she didn't want to marry him, but they remained friends through all his life, and she was a pacifist. So, that could be a reason for a Peace Prize. And let's do some driving maneuvers. Så är det där skylten som står ut där nere, men det kommer bra. Yeah, here we are. Let's see if we can move some cars.
Okay.
Because actually, even if we backed up, you couldn't drive anywhere because it's all closed. Okay, well, you come in. Så jag vet inte om man... Är det han?
Ekyewuunyisa mukazi nno y'avuga, abakazi eno bavuga emmotoka n'oweewuunya n'okwewuunya. Nze natidde abakazi nga bavuga emmotoka wano, baasi, trayini, emmotoka zino ennene, kyewuunyisa. Ono si mwenge, gano mazzi ga kunywa. Si mwenge, gano mazzi.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Mpulira kutandise okunkwata, njagala kwebaka.
Okay, with a little help we got through. So to tell you about the Norwegian language, so by the Viking Age, we were all the Scandinavian countries. We were speaking Norse, the same language.
Yeah.
But eventually, our language was a bit divided, and the Scandinavian countries, which are Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, we all do understand each other. Although the Swedes say that the Danish speak with a hot potato in the mouth, and it is a bit difficult to understand Danish, but basically we all do understand each other. The theater that we're passing on our left side now, here they only play their plays in New Norwegian, which means that we have 3 public languages in Norway. One is our indigenous language, Sami, and then we have Norwegian and New Norwegian. And the reason why we have Norwegian and New Norwegian is because when we were in union with Denmark, our language had been completely diluted. So one man traveled around the whole country, gathered dialects from all over the world, and put it together into one language, which is New Norwegian. And it sounds like a dialect, and of course we understand. On the left side, you see the back of the university, and to the right, you have the historical museum. And we're going to turn to the left, and you will have the Palace Park on your right-hand side. And when I said the university, so this is our university building from 1852. Now it's only for law students. Our huge campus is approximately 10 minutes by transportation, where you have all the other departments. So as we're crossing the traffic light, then please look to your right. You get a glimpse of our palace from 1849. And it looks really simple. It's not as elaborate as maybe other palaces in the world, which actually suits Norwegians perfectly. And a lot of people that are going up to the palace are not necessarily going up there to look at the palace, because this little street here up to the palace to the right, this is actually a pathway from one side to the other. So you walk through the Palace Park and you come out on the other side. And the Palace Park has no gates, so you just walk in and out 24/7. And the beautiful building that you see on your left with the gray roof, the spire, was built in the late 1880s and was the first apartments that had electricity, and big apartments. Fortunately, it has a very sad story when it comes to the Second World War, because the Nazis settled there among other places. They settled in all the great buildings in Oslo, the palace, the parliament, the city hall, and unfortunately there was a lot of interrogations going on at this beautiful building. So if people were picked up and they knew they were going to Vika, as it was called, they were not sure they were coming back. And the other building that we have with all the windows, the glass windows and green roof, that's our foreign ministry. And to the right, you can see the palace and the palace park. And the royal family, or at least our king and queen, they live on the left side. The architect here is Lindstone. And I don't know if you heard about Henrik Ibsen, but this is the little Ibsen Museum on your left. And Henrik Ibsen, is the second most played playwright in the world, next to Shakespeare. And we're driving up Henrik Ibsen Street. And the black building you see here, we're passing on our left, that used to be the American Embassy. Where we still have an American Embassy, it's just a little bit out of the city center. And of course, when we have an empty building, there's wine bar, coffee shops, and restaurants. You should believe that few people, living in this country, that there is room for all these restaurants and wine bars and coffee shops. But apparently it is. And the beautiful building we have to the right, this is actually the Nobel Peace Institute. You see the bust of Alfred Nobel outside the main entrance here. And I thought that because anyone can suggest anyone for the Nobel Peace Prize, and there are criteria that Alfred Nobel put in his will, can't be more than 3 recipients, and it's either an organization or a single person. And I thought that all the suggestions, because, as I said, you can all suggest whoever you think is, worthy of the Peace Prize. But that maybe the names and organization was screened before they ended up on the table of the Nobel Committee. And they don't. The committee only exists of 5 people, representatives also from different political parties. So from all the suggestions, they make their choice. Last year it was an Iranian woman called Nargis Mohammadi, and she was and is still in prison and couldn't be here to receive the prize. So her children did that on her behalf. And this year it is a Japanese organization fighting against the nuclear bomb survivors, mostly from Nagasaki and Hiroshima during the Second World War. And to the right here, this is the residence of our Prime Minister. Our Prime Minister is Jonas Gahr Støre from the Labour Party. And the Labour Party is in coalition with the Centre Party. We have election every 4th year, and next year will be 2025. And the two major parties are Labour and Conservative. And I think you can ask any Norwegian. It's really not that much difference between the two of them. And I know that you have an election coming up tonight, I think. So that everyone will follow, of course, also in Norway. When we have our election next year, I think very much will depend who one of these two parties will be in coalition with. There's a lot of important questions, and hopefully we are also the young people politically aware. On the right-hand side, this is an elementary school. This area here is called Frogner, and it's it's a huge area, consists mostly of apartment buildings. It's really a popular and very well sought after area to live. You also have some single homes, but mostly you have apartments. And the big attraction with these apartments is that you have the high ceiling. So you can look both to left and right because the area is huge. And coming up, we are on our way to the So we're on our way to the Vigeland Sculpture Park, and I will tell you a little bit about the man when we come a little bit closer. We're still in the Frogner area, and actually there are many popular places in this city to live. It's really expensive, as you know, in most capitals, but it's really expensive here. And when parents save up for their children, it's not education, because our education is for free. Kindergarten you will have to pay, but then all through school everything is for free, then also university. So when parents help their children is after education, when they want to get into the property or get on the property ladder.
Kusoma kwa bwerere mu Norway paka ku university osomera bwerere. Imagine.
And to the left, every Saturday there's a flea market here, or an antique market. But you can also rent a table here, and if you want to clean up your attic or basement, come with your stuff and hopefully go home with less stuff and a little bit of money. At some point we're going to take to the left, but if we had continued to the right, you would come to Bogstadveien, which is a long shopping street that will take you all the way down to the other side of the Palace Park. And speaking of the Palace Park, if you have the time to wander up to the palace and you walk around in the Palace Park, you will see, of course, sculptures of some of them are of royalties. But if you want to look for our present queen, and you want to look for, let's say, a royal statue, you won't find her, because our present queen is portrayed sitting on a huge stone in her hiking gear, because that's our queen. She is now, I think she's 87, I think the same as her husband, which is 86. Her name is Sonia. She's an artist, and she's been climbing or walking so many treks and trails up and down the mountains in Norway, so many of them are named after her, and that's why she is sitting on a huge stone in her hiking gear. And we're taking to the left, and this is part of the Frogner Park or the Vigeland Park. This park has two names. So the older name is the Frogner Park, and we still call it the Frogner Park because this area is called Frogner. But then when the artist Gustav Vigeland had the opportunity to put his sculptures here, of course this was also named the Vigeland Park. And in this park you have tennis courts, you have outdoor swimming pool, you have two museums, you have places to eat. Yeah, it's just a beautiful area to walk around, and even though we have gates, they are not closed, never closed. So again, there has to be a lot of respect among the people who use the park and the people who take care of the park. So we're going to walk from one side to the other. And just to tell you that there are bathrooms here, so if that's something you want to do first, we'll go. I'll show you where the bathrooms are, and then we'll walk. It's 850 meters, but you're young, so if I can do it, you can do it. Just put all your clothes on. Okay, then we will see Johnny on the other side of the park.
Bavuga zi Tesla nyingi. Kale enda kuddamu ndikodinga akatambi akalala kano natudde mu kifo ky'abakungu nnyo wano. Kale katuddemu.